Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about deleting code, and unfortunately I forgot to delete any letters from the second word of this talk's title. Oh, no, okay, that's changed. So this basically comes from a story of some things I've been doing recently. And of course, the best way to start a story is with a question. Are you sitting comfortably? So what is my story? Well, at the start of this year, I found myself working with a big old code base where lots of the people who had worked on this big old code base weren't around anymore. And lots of the people who were around didn't know how the big old code base worked, and we had to understand it. So yeah, as I was reading through this code base, I kept reading through bits of code that weren't used anymore. And I was wasting time trying to understand this code. So as I discovered it, I would periodically remove bits of code. Things like string eval, we've got dynamic method dispatch. It's not a static language where you can promise and guarantee that your code definitely isn't being used. So I started by going fairly carefully, mostly removing bits from our test libraries that none of our tests call, because hey, what can go wrong there? And then after a while, I got a bit more bold and started removing bits of code. And then after a while, I realized, well, of the hundreds of thousands of lines of code in this repository, I've really not deleted that much. And I thought, this is the stuff I've discovered, there must be even more I can delete, or possibly delete, or probably delete. And hey, we've got testers, and if I break production, we can roll back, so it's fine. So I stuck, and actually I hadn't broken production at the time with any of this randomly deleting code. So I thought, well, I'll try and automate it. Also, this isn't something I'm supposed to be doing. What I'm supposed to be doing is developing new features, doing my everyday work. But the more I delete code, the quicker I can delete features. And people weren't telling me off for deleting code. And some of my colleagues were going, is that still there? I thought we deleted that 5 years ago. So basically, I was looking, every time I found some code that seemed dodgy, there's an E on the end now. Oh, this is going to be fun. Yeah, so basically, I was grepping the code base to try and find things that weren't being used and deleting them. That's how I started out. I like to use a tool called TIG because I found it a really useful way of exploring repositories. But any tool used to explore the repository beyond git grep can be really helpful. After a while, I started, this is basically my first pass at automating it. I looked for lines that started with the word sub, and I found everything on clib. So this basically gives me all of the methods that are in my test libraries, like that. And basically cut, I could have used awk or Perl, but this was like, it was about 5:30 and I wanted to go home, but I thought I'll just give this a go, see what happens. Put it all in a variable. And then what I'm doing here, again, yeah, my slides have cut off on the end, but basically we're going through the code base and finding all of the uses of each method. And if there's only one use of this method in my code base, I know that the subroutine's been declared but never been called. So, well, if we've got subroutines that are declared but never called, they can go. So I deleted a few of these things. And I put this in the commit message as well in case anyone else wanted to do it. And people are like, hey, that's quite cool. I forget how much code I deleted with that. But there were some problems with this because some of my colleagues document their code and they write comments. And this documentation and comments contains the method names, so therefore it occurs more than once. So really what I need to do, I've deleted all the undocumented unused code, but not the documented unused code. So I figured that I could go through everything in the T directory that was a test or a test library and use Perl tidy to strip out the pod, strip out the comments, just whack it in this. I could put all that code in this directory. UUID-gen just gives me a random file name. I don't actually care what it's called. But what I've got now is this directory called clean, which has all the clean code with no pod and no docs. And so I can come back to this thing again. And instead of using git grep, I now do a recursive grep on my cleans directory. The grep $1 finds things that are only used once. And I found a whole load more code that was never being called in the test directory. So I could delete that as well, and that was a few thousand lines more, and I put the shell script in the git commit message so people could do that. Are you scared? Well, I've also gone on to do a bit of this on our code base under lib, not under the test directory. Some of that's in production, some of it will go out in the next release. If you were a responsible person, which I'm not, you could find potentially unused methods and put a log in, then go back a few months later, check through your logs. If you never see this in the log, then you never called it, so you can delete it. So, but really my conclusion is if you're working with old code, don't be afraid of deleting it. Perhaps talk to people a bit, be a bit more responsible. This is a lightning talk. And so ultimately my conclusion is, oh, I deleted the conclusion.
So hi, I'm talking about YAML. Just a quick check. Who of you knows a bit of YAML? Great. Who doesn't? Okay. So there are some YAML modules, YAML PM, YAML SIG, YAML XS, YAML Tiny. And do we need another one? Absolutely. So I started to write YAML PP, and first of all, I love colors, and Ingi wrote a nice command line tool for the GitHub API, and at the beginning of 2016, it looked like that. How do I make, okay. Okay, it looked like that, and then I made it with colors. Unfortunately, the zoom isn't permanent, but okay. So Ingi wrote also a PegXPM, a module for parsing, and before it looked like this, and after I added colors to it, it looked like that. So now let's look about some YAML files. So one of these is invalid. Who knows which one? Okay, so colors really help. And you can actually do this from the command line. So YAML PP includes a highlighter script that shows you highlighted output and also arrows. How does it work? So it has a lexer. It turns the input into tokens. And then the tokens are passed to the grammar. It's a bottom-up grammar. And it has some callbacks. These callbacks call the parser. And the parser then creates events like sequence start, scalar event, mapping start, scalar, mapping end, sequence end. And then there's a constructor that creates a data structure out of it. And this event API is actually quite common. So libyaml does it, Python, PyYAML, RuYAML, YAML C++, SnakeYAML, NimYAML, and now we also have a pure Perl module that works this way. And I'm not aware of any other YAML parser that uses a grammar. So Ingi started a PegX grammar actually, but it needs much more work. And having a grammar makes it actually easier to port. Of course, you have to implement a lexer and the callbacks and stuff. But figuring out the grammar is actually one of the hardest parts. So I could just take this grammar and port this stuff to Perl 6 or Go, or actually you could do it. And a quick look at the future. So I would like to create a DOM to allow round trips, including the comments in YAML. Or maybe transform YAML 1.1 documents into 1.2. Also want to create a schema to allow to control objects. So because local tags in Perl, they are loaded as objects. So we have a dice object here from this local tag, but we also have this tag. And so unfortunately, this is also loaded into a class, which doesn't make sense. And there's no way to turn that off. There's no way to control it, which is really bad. So we want to fix that. In PyYAML, you have to register each local tag, so you can load it into an object. But you can also do some fancy stuff like, so you have this dice object from the sequence, but you can also say if I have a digit and a D and another digit, then it should be automatically loaded as a dice object. So that's very nice. So this kind of stuff should be available to Perl. I mean, it's Perl, right? So, and just because I love colors, I have a test matrix. I made this from the YAML test suite. There are 270 tests in the YAML test suite now. And it looks like this. So here are the processors that do that create events, like libyaml here, PyYAML, RuYAML, and here are the JSON comparisons. And actually, YAML PP does look quite nice already, but there are some tests I still have to implement, so I'm working on it. I have a TPF grant actually for that, so thanks.
I always talk about things beyond the echo chamber, and I thought Adventures Beyond the Echo Chamber, hey, that's an Orb album, so a visual pun. Then I thought, hang on, the first track on that album, Little Fluffy Clouds, the one everyone knows, that's 4.5 minutes long, so I don't need to give a lightning talk. Look, what were the slides like when you were young? But no, I couldn't think of any more jokes. So anyway, outside the echo chamber, I continue the explanation that we've done many times before. LinkedIn. Now, I don't actually spend much time at LinkedIn very much these days. But do you remember a couple of weeks ago, there was that article, that blog post went round about how Perl was the most despised programming language? When someone posted that to LinkedIn, now, I'm not the most tactful person in the world, but if you're using terms like this, you're not going to be encouraging people. So I don't go to LinkedIn. Facebook. Very basic questions on Facebook. So much misunderstanding. It's hard to share code on Facebook because the editor just doesn't understand indentation, so it's crap. It's also full of adverts for R Perl. So I don't go there much anyway, but anyway, they have Jeff Goff who answers to pretty much any question in that group almost instantly. So Stack Overflow is where I do most of my outreach beyond the echo chamber these days. Stack Overflow, or as I like to call it, and just there's a quote that I've cut and pasted from a question that came up there about 6 weeks ago. So 15 years ago, someone set this course, died, and then they're carrying on the course just with this logbook that nobody understands. And to me, that kind of sums up Perl outside the echo chamber. It's all 15 years out of date. It's stagnant. Perl hasn't had an update in 20... I'm just going to carefully step around that Perl 6 naming discussion at that point. Not taken seriously. It's a scripting language, so nobody has to put any effort into it. These next 3 slides are slides that I put in a talk 15 years ago. People do it because Perl is the web. The web is easy. Therefore, Perl is easy. Language is not commutative. So anyway, what to do? Well, I've been doing this. I've been around the block a few times. It's very tempting to just take my beautiful wife and go and retire and forget about it and leave the rest of you up to it. Maybe fill in a few more bits of blue on our map of countries that we've... But no, really, we need to carry on. We need to be out there spreading the knowledge. Some of you might have seen a talk I gave 2 years ago about conference-driven publishing. And one of the things I came out of that was, let's make Perl books a cottage industry. It was a kind of a joke. Going back a bit further, 5 years ago, I ran some training courses under the Perl School banner. Cheap courses run on a Saturday, so there was no excuse not to come on them. So I'm thinking, what about if I reinvent that, publishing short, cheap ebooks about Perl? Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, those of you that were at LPW in 2014 know that I've got previous in this. This is me promising to write a book in a year. This is the next slide saying it was going to be available at the next LPW. It didn't happen. Didn't go well. Lessons were learned. Most important of which is don't announce things that you know you can't deliver. So anyway, there's this new book. There's the first of the Perl School books, which is actually available on Amazon already. And it's been there for a week and none of you noticed. I've got future plans, maybe one on Moose, DBIC, dancers. Those of you that have been on any of my courses might recognize that these are just, I'm repurposing my courses as ebooks. Testing, modern core Perl. If there's anything else you think that we should be publishing, would you like to help me write one, or would you like to write one yourself? Yes. Let me help you with the technical stuff about publishing the books. It's actually surprisingly easy. Get in touch with me on these things, and thank you very much for listening.
So this was originally a 20-minute talk. I've made it a 5-minute talk, so this is going to be really quick. So there was a crisis in the EPO about 2.5 years ago. I had a third child on the way, and pretty much there's a video there that says everything's fucked. And that's where we were, because everything was fucked. This was fucked. There we go, very slow, it's showing very slowly. I love Max. It's now stopped. La, 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 you got a little spinning wheel. So everything was fucked, including this display and the slides. While Leon sorts this out, I'll carry on. What the problem actually was is that we had money from sponsors and donations, but the website was fucked and the membership was fucked, and I had no way to get into the database to find out who were members or to find out how to contact them. So I lost all the members, all of them, gone. Just me. I was the EPO. Hello, nice to see you all. I'm the EPO. I could still get money and I was still paying for things, but that was about it. Are we back up yet? He's useless. I hope you're giving me extra time for this. Oh, go to a later slide. And I'll just start from wherever you... Yeah, anyway. Come on, darling. So, also at the same time, the director sort of stagnated, except for me. And I actually had to stop and go to a point, if we go down to here, where it says loss of members. There we go, infrastructure was fucked, director stagnated, life footage was going out of it. We were losing money because we had no members, but we weren't losing all our money. I had to ask, is it worth it? Really? What does the EPO do? Well, basically the EPO just supports Perl that's used in production. And it does that by gathering money from people and spending it. And it has to do it really quickly because you don't want to get taxed on it. You want to spend it. We also give legitimacy, because if you want to run a conference and you say, can I have £10,000 from your country for Dave and his mates for snacks? Somebody's going to ask a question. So companies like to be billed by another company. They like to know that that company publishes its books and can be found. So we've done that for the QA Hackathon, Meta CPAN Hackathon, the London Perl Workshop for 11 years, and Perl Conference in Glasgow. We also spend the money that we get in. So what have we spent it on? Well, YAPSI Brazil, Meta CPAN logo, we paid for that. The QA Hackathon, we put over 10,000 stickers, loads of booklets and leaflets, including that 64-page book of which we've given away a few hundred copies. That's about £3 a copy, given away completely for free, nearly all of them gone. We paid for the infrastructure of Strawberry Perl. That's the production servers, not the website servers. And then the CPAN testers. So we pay for all the CPAN testers they're used in the UK. That's the smoke testing testers. And the ones that are in America as well, that's over £5,500 a year. A few extra bits that we also pay for. So Meta CPAN site, we arranged for them to get their sponsorship with Bytemark. We go to FOSDEM and we put out promotion at FOSDEM and we do stuff at FOSDEM. And then there's all the community stuff we do. I have no idea how much time I've got now because the time is fucked. I love it. So Send a Newbie program, that's a great initiative. From that, we have these people. There was no Bangkok PM until we sent somebody to YAPSI Asia. This guy, Dutch Perl Workshops, and this year's YAPSI, Send a Newbie. This guy, this year's YAPSI, Send a Newbie. This guy, last year's YAPSI, Send a Newbie. And this guy refused to be photographed. But does the dev room at FOSDEM. We've also done the Google Summer of Code and the Google Coding, which has brought some young people into Perl. Very few, but it brought some in. Tadzik was one of them, and he does lots of stuff. So community breeds community. That's an interesting thing. Who supports all of that? So there's a lot of names going to flash up. The EPO in general needs money. So all of these people have given money just to the EPO to run and manage its costs. And then all of these people gave money to the CPAN testers, and then all of these people gave money to the Meta CPAN Hackathon, and all of these people gave money to the QA Hackathon. I've got 3 kids. They're all very young. Sometimes they don't see me because I'm doing all this stuff in the community. One's 7, one's 5, one's 18 months. They're very, very cute. I'd like to spend a lot more time with them, but I also have a lot more kids. And they often need me to raise money for them because they sometimes can't talk to people and just present a sensible fucking invoice. They don't work out that all a sensible invoice needs is your name, their name, the amount, a date is nice, makes it a little more official, on paper, not toilet paper, not just an email. Don't put for snacks. So there was a plan, and the first plan was make a website that worked. So I used WordPress. Fuck it, it just works. And it's supportable, and you can automate it, and click, done, away. And I used Civi CRM because fuck it, just works. And I had some mini hackathons that some people to get Civi CRM working. So the membership site now fucking works. So I can get members again. How many members do I have? More than one. 3 people joined within the first month because there was a membership site I took. In fact, one person joined at the last talk I gave by walking up and giving me the money and saying, hey, I'm joined, what do I do now? So I went, what? So what we do next is enlist. Because this is what you need to do, because I need all of you. You can join as a member, you don't have to pay, you can be what's called an associate member where you give nothing. You just says that you support the organization. But I really want you to actually donate or find people to donate. And yeah, well, duh, obviously. That was simple. And I'd like some more volunteers, that'd be nice. There are some people who stuck with me through all of this and did things. Those are those people. All of those people are wonderful, and they rarely accept the praise that they get. And then there's all these companies who kept with us. enlightenedperl.org/members, please join. There you go. Oh, and by the way, the new organizers are fantastic. I'm having such a fucking lovely day.
So hi, I'm Jasper from Tokyo, and I'm a maintainer of several stuff, and today I'm talking about something about cPants. So I believe some of you, or most of you, have experienced this disappointment after you come back from a coffee break and find your cPan installer says installation failed because something was missing. It's very annoying, so cPants has 2 metrics to warn this issue. And these metrics usually work, but sometimes don't, partly because cPants metrics looks at modules in a template string, or sometimes cPants doesn't complain, but, well, cPants module doesn't know much about modern module loaders, so but when you run this code, you look at can't locate something. So I always wanted to fix it and replace the detector. A good candidate was a Perl scanner. It's very nice and it's widely used, but it's kind of slow to analyze all the cPan. And there are another option called Perl Scanner Lite, which was written by a fellow Japanese Perl hacker called Mozunion. It's really fast, and I wanted to use it really, but it's kind of unstable. So I needed to write one by myself. Actually, I wrote it one in 2005, and I refactored last year. It's still slow, but it's kind of runs faster. Usually runs faster than PPS, and it recognizes not only Moose family, including MooseX declare,
Great man.
and also it recognizes modern major Perl frameworks, including Catalyst or Black, and more. And more. These are Moose variants that I recognize with function is used as like Moose, and it distinguishes requires from recommends and suggests. Namely, foo is requires and bar is always loaded, but we can do without buzz and cool, maybe. And it even knows what the plan skip all means. So if you plan skip all in a begin block, win32 is a recommend. And if begin is not, begin is gone, the win32 is requires. And it doesn't really pass Perl, but it recognizes long strings and UTF-8 subroutine name and new keywords introduced by syntax feature plugins. So cpants will eventually complain, not yet implemented, but eventually complains if it finds a cheat. Please use use strict or use warning or some equivalent. So if you use Power Perl scanner, migration should be easy. You just need to specify which requires or suggests. Right, thank you. And it has a feature to upgrade cpan file, so yeah, you might need to move some of the recommends or suggest to requires, but it can be. It can. And I wrote a module, another module called test cpan file using this module, which tests if the all the used modules are listed in cpan file. So that's all. I hope you like them. Thank you.
I gave a lightning talk with this same title at YAPC Riga in 2000 and mumble. But this isn't the same talk. There's 3 reasons. 1 is that I lost the slides. 2, I can't remember what I said. And 3, the video never got put online. So this is in the spirit of Dave Cross' wonderful recycling of talks. This is the same talk, but it's different talk. Oh, that's Riga. You missed it. How's your Latin? So Dave is talking about forums. If I'm allowed to say forums with Latin on the screen, I don't know if that worked. And these wonderful forums tend to have a rather unhealthy desire for an infatuation with speed, and this often comes in the actual question itself. So someone might ask, "What's the fastest way to do X or Y?" Or maybe it's a bit more subtle. What's the best way to do X or Y? Sometimes it's just, well, how do I do X or Y? And but the thing is that the threads that emerge from this often follow the same sort of. They resemble each other to a certain extent, and they sometimes go something like this: the question, how do I do X? And the answer is, you can use method A. That works, good. And then someone says, but method B is faster. And maybe there's a bit of backwards to and froing, and maybe someone says, well, what about method C? And eventually someone says, I will benchmark it, and then we will know. And eventually they come back with something like this, and everyone looks at it and says, what does that mean? It means one of them's faster than the other, and eventually you work it out and you say, okay, method B is 31% faster than method A, or conversely it's 24%, method A is 24% slower, and eventually you work out and you say, brilliant, so we should use method B. Okay, hold on, I have some questions. First, is the benchmark correct? Very regularly the benchmark is wrong, and you're working on the wrong data. Why is that? Well, one reason is because benchmarking is hard, but the other reason is also that benchmarking is hard. It really is. It's difficult to get it right. I have another question. Why do we use Perl anyway? I mean, what's it all about? So we asked 100 people why they use Perl, and they said, because it's succinct, because it's powerful, because cpan is wonderful, because there's so many tools, because it's blazingly fast, because the Unicode support... Hold on a minute, what was that? Really? No. Okay, so we know that Perl is not the fastest language out there. Of course it's not. But it has certain advantages for us, and we generally trade runtime speed for development speed, maybe a factor of about 2 to 10 on each one of them. So we're 2 to 10 times slower and maybe 2 to 10 times faster in development speed, very roughly finger in the air sort of thing. Okay, so let's go back to this benchmark, which is actually, this is a real benchmark I copied off of Perl Monks. And we looked at the numbers on the right there, but the numbers on the left here, if you look at that, method A ran about 1.3 million times per second. Now, I can't remember what the question was that they were benchmarking here, but I'm willing to bet that this wasn't the bottleneck that they were looking for. Yeah. Okay, so that means that we should use method B then, because faster is better than slower anyway, right? Okay, I have some more questions. Rules of optimization. So many of you will know these rules already from Michael A. Jackson. First one, don't do it. Second one, for experts only, don't do it yet. Oh, I better be quick. Okay, right. Okay, the thing is, though, we're all experts and we've all been waiting long enough, so we're going to do it anyway. So, first question, does it work? For some people, it's really important to get the right answer, the wrong answer very, very quickly. If it works, is it fast enough? If it is, yes, time to go to the pub. If it's not, are you really sure it's not fast enough? Okay. Then, before you do anything, you better be profiling. I don't want anyone touching code before they've profiled it. But when you get to that point, one of the things you're going to want to do is either fix your algorithm or you're going to want to... my slides are in the wrong order. Okay. Before you fix your algorithm, throw hardware at it. That's what you do. It's cheaper, it's more efficient, and it's easier, quicker. Otherwise, fix your algorithm or cache something. These are generally 80% of the time you're going to fix it this way. But sometimes you really want to get down to the micro-optimization. So it's all about counting the ops. The number of Perl ops that runs is going to be related to how fast your code is running. What we want to do is we want to get rid of threads like this. How do I increment an array? Well, it's easy. You just map over it and just add one to every element. That's really simple. But someone says, hold on a minute, you can do better than just adding one. How about using the post operator? That's going to be much faster. But hold on. You're creating a scope there every time. That's really slow. Why don't you use the list form of map? Aha, much better. But you're creating an array only to throw it away with map. That's what map does. That's what map used to do. It doesn't anymore. So use a for loop. But we've got the scope back in again. Okay, there we go. That's the solution. Now, but hold on. Pre-increment is faster than post-increment. Doesn't matter. Thank you.
I'm Chris Jack. I haven't spoken in public for a while, so I'm a bit nervous, so it'd be nice. I had a few thoughts about Perl jobs. They're slightly random, and they're based on my experience, so don't take this as like absolute truth. The first bit is on echo chambers, and this feeling that I've been working as a contractor for about 2/3 of my career with Perl, and it's not the same as being a permanent person. So if you think about Joel on software, Joel Bernstein, who divided the software industry up into basically two sorts of companies, software houses and in-house development. So software house produces software for a large number of users, and in-house development do it for a small number of users. There are some major differences. One of the ones which has always struck me is that in-house development doesn't, in the companies that I've worked, do unit testing. And you might ask, well, why don't you go in there and add unit testing in? And I think the answer is I would get fired if I did, because you're going to a site which has like 500,000 lines of Perl code of variable quality. And you would take 3 to 4 years of your own time to actually put unit testing in. And the bigger question is whether it actually has a cost-benefit analysis benefit to the whole thing. And I don't think it does. So I had a question about demographics of the computer industry and why we aren't seeing massive rate diminution because of outsourcing to places like India. One of the things that struck me is that first degrees in computer science are about 1980, so we haven't reached full a period where everyone in the industry who's before retirement age has a degree. By about 2035, you would.
2025.
Sorry?
2025.
2025.
I know when I retire.
But at the same time, you've had this change where in the year 2000 it was still possible to finish a job on a Friday and start a new one on a Monday. And now I'm finding that even if I get an offer, it takes 2 to 4 weeks before I can actually start because of like background checks. So let's have a look at some graphs about how this stuff is happening. So this is the first graph is looking at 3 major outsourcing companies in India. And back in 2007, they're growing at about 40%, and they're still growing about 10%. And now you've also got the ratio of junior people. So here you've got like 30% had less than 1 year's experience, and now it's down to 10%. A number of people with more than 5 years' experience has gone up to over 50%. So why isn't this leading to a major crash in rates in London? And one reason may be that according to Aspiring Minds, which is a New Delhi employment solutions company, it's a bit difficult to get all the information I wanted out of Google, but you get engineering graduates easily reported on Google. And according to Aspiring Minds, of the 150,000 engineering graduates in 2013, only about 3% were employable in software or product market. So if you take that slightly dodgy 4,500 number for a moment, and you look at UK graduates, we've got 27,000 here, and it's been growing. So that's much bigger than 4,500. Of those, computer science graduates have the highest unemployment ratio of any of the disciplines, but computer science graduates get paid far more, so you're trading a higher likelihood of not getting a job for a potentially larger amount of money. Now, you can't read any of that. What this first slide is showing you is taking it back to the Perl market. So 2015, you've got 1.71% of jobs advertised were for Perl, and then 2016, it's 1.85%, and then there's been a drop-off in first half of 2016. But at the same time, 425 pounds, so the rates are still going up. For permanent jobs, it's been going down slightly, so 2.39. You shouldn't take this as a metaphor for the total number of jobs. This is the number of advertised jobs, which is a poor indication of total number of jobs. But again, salary rises have been going up. Random other data. Females in computer science, with all the talk about it, you would hope that little green line is the UK, and you can see that it's been going down. So despite a lot of talk about women in computing, still less people are graduating. But what's interesting is if you compare the US to India, that final number is about 35%. So it is possible for women to get a higher representation in computer science. So there's still a question about why in Western society we're not managing to do it.
So, hello. So this is so mistakes not to make in talk slides, because I've seen a lot of talks and I've seen a lot of mistakes. So first of all, a personal introduction to me. Well, I was born in 1982. That was on the BBC Micro. I did learn BASIC on the BBC Micro, and then I did some C and so on. And yeah, you don't care. Especially with a lightning talk, CPAN name, email, maybe Twitter, maybe website if anyone uses those. Don't go overboard on a personal introduction. You don't have time. Yay! Let's have some colors. We like colors, don't we? Highlights are great because they really screw with the projectors. And Google Drive actually has more fonts than I realized. That's great. Yeah, don't do that either. Try and just stick to 1 or 2 styles. Put them in. Just be rare. Beware of color blindness as well. Red, green, especially. Yeah, people putting their hands up. Yeah, just don't overuse the color.
Blue, green also.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. You can talk for hours on the subject, yes, but I won't. Now, backgrounds. Everyone loves a nice, pretty background, don't they? I wasn't intending to put that highlight behind that X, but I actually couldn't read it because yeah, you can't read that. Yeah, don't do that, people. Avoid distracting backgrounds because people will just stare at the pretty colors and the autumn leaves. It's very pretty, but keep the background subtle. If you want, you can put a company logo in. Look, that's nice and subtle. It's not distracting. It's fine. Fancy slide transitions. Yeah, we love these, don't we? Go on, where's it going to go? Where's it going to go? Where's it going to go? Where's it coming? Where's it coming? Oh, there it is. Yeah, don't do that either, because people will just, again, stare at the prettiness. Just avoid it. Flashing things that are moving around, people, again, are just going to stare at them. It's human nature. It's what our eyes are built to do. It's going to distract people. Just use simple cuts, simple fades, that kind of thing. Yeah, they do. Now, if you work at all in the video industry, you'll be aware of a concept called safe zones. So clearly, you want to use the very top pixel of the screen, go right to the edges. Actually, these projectors are better than I thought they would be. This bottom one was a massive problem for me in Amsterdam this year. Do not use the bottom of the screen because that will probably project through people's heads. Actually, this room is quite good for that, but if we're sitting in a flat room, can't see it. So don't do that. Stick to the middle of the screen. Avoid the edges because your projector is going to cut them off. Now, huge wall of text. If you have a giant paragraph of text in your default reaction, is going to be to stand and read it out. And you'll turn your back to face the slide and read it out loud with your back to the audience. And banana, cheese monkey, dishwasher, cheese grater. No, don't do that. Short things. Keep them short and simple. You don't need real sentences. You'll notice I don't put real sentences. They don't have full stops. Just a few words. That's all you need. It's called a talk for a reason. It's not a reading. You're not there to read out your slides. Now, similar mistake. Huge wall of code. Now, on line, is it 17 or is it 16? I can't tell. But there's a, yeah, don't do that. People are not a Perl compiler. They don't need to see everything, right? Elide most of it. Get rid of it. Just some ... People can infer. We're going to shift $self off here. People can kind of guess what's going on maybe if they know the context, right? Just pull out the important detail. Putting up code in other languages. I mean, a simple example of that is, for example, this. Sorry, I'm missing the comments in there, actually. The comments make a lot. Yeah. Again, don't do that, right? This is a Perl conference in English, so don't presume that people know other languages. That applies to programming languages. It applies to natural languages as well. If you're going to put up foreign code, foreign languages, spend extra time to explain it. Incidentally, that was the round setup for an MD5 digest calculation in APL, commented in Esperanto. If anybody saw my tweet complaining about fonts, it took me a long time to find a font that knows APL and Esperanto. But I did find one. Oh dear. Right. So very important things. Don't just prohibit things. That's bad. You'll see what I'm doing. Don't just prohibit things. Always suggest alternatives, because people don't just want to be told don't do that, because then they're kind of in a panic. They're on the defensive. Tell them what else to do in your slides. And finally, the most important point.